Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Cooking with Unity. I'm your host, Maximilian Moreau, and not with me is my co-host, Philip Wilson. Unfortunately, he is out today, and was out yesterday too. So today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be doing kind of a Q&A session with the folks here who are viewing live and some of the people who have posted messages not live, or earlier than live, better than live. I don't know what you'd call that. Back in the past, in the distant past. So first off, I just wanted to say that I have sent off the keychains to everyone I have addresses for. I have not sent off the emails requesting addresses from the remaining people yet. That'll go out tonight. And I don't have a case of showing the actual finished product, but I have a test material that we're going to try with the Pushy Pixels logo on it for the coasters, and so hopefully this will come out with nice white text from the laser etching and stuff. So I think this will be even better than what we had before. Sorry it's been so long on updates on what's going on with that. So I'm going to switch it to just my face, even though it's terrifying to me. I'm not sure if it's terrifying to you guys. It might be. So I've already got a couple questions here, so I'm going to start burning through these. And my apologies if I am not up to date on this stuff as quickly, because I don't have a co-pilot going on right now who really Phil helps tremendously with keeping up on the comments and stuff. And I've just got this iPad on my side here, and hopefully it will actually update properly. And let me know if there's any problems, if you guys have any trouble seeing or hearing me. So let's first start off with I'm just going to go through the list here from oldest to newest. And actually, I'm really excited because there's already arguments in the comments, so that's great. So what do you think of Unity's adoption chances by larger game development companies in the future? Obviously, something we'd all like to see, but how likely do you think it is? It's already happening. It's one of those things where for whatever reason people get really I'm going to use the term fanboyish about the tools that they use, and I know I'm a fan of Unity, quite frankly. But the thing is, companies adopt things that work, and companies adopt things at a rate that's appropriate to what they're doing, and companies adopt things that people know how to use. And so the thing is, they've got a lot of software that they already know how to use, and so this is a slower build here. The honest truth is, Unity themselves are actively trying to pick up the big fish. They actually are. They probably care more about them right now than the individual indies. I'm not saying that they don't care about the indies. I'm just saying that they care more because they want to break into this, because they know if they are in with the big guys and people start seeing Unity on the front splash screens of games rather than Crytek or Unreal, it will market them and it will help them. And so they want that. And then additionally, they just want the direct sale on that. The thing is, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo all have already set up agreements with Unity. And the thing is, the nature of these agreements is not very well known. But like in the case of all of them, I haven't heard if they're actually even indie friendly at all. It's more of an agreement so that people who are at professional and near professional levels can use Unity to deploy to their platforms. There may be indie options as well. I hope that there will be. I think that anyone who doesn't do that is going to be dropping the ball. But quite frankly, there's already support there. Most major game studios have a few licenses of Unity. There's not a whole lot of examples of games released with Unity that are high profile projects. But I do know that Sony, the game, the PlayStation Vita game. Escape Plan was a Unity developed game. It was actually the first Vita Unity developed game, and it was a launch title for the Vita. So it shows that companies are paying attention to this. So that's am I too loud? I don't think I'm too loud. That's one thing there. Let's see. First of all, I'm just going to see if I've gotten any comments about things not working. Okay, everything seems to be okay. I'm just going to continue. Let's see. Do you plan on starting something new soon? Yeah, I always want to start something new. Honestly, I get bored of projects at the 5th episode mark typically, and that's not entirely true. Like, I'm actually really enjoying the Star Fox thing, but I'm not someone who wants to make one game or remake the same thing over and over again, and I'm someone who prefers short-term stuff. Like, my favorite games to make are 48-hour game competition games. I love doing Ludum Dare. I recently did one for Indie Speedrun, and I mostly did that just because I wanted to know that Suda51 had played one of my games at some point. That just makes me happy because he's one of my favorite designers. You guys probably don't know. Well, I'm not saying that you don't know him. You guys might know him. But he did Killer 7 and what is that lightsaber game? No More Heroes series, among other things. And I really like his style, and I really like his games. What any plans for what it is? I don't plan at all. I did have a request from someone to do a grappling hook game, and that sounds like fun. I have done one of those before. It was unpublished. It was Gnome Ninja for iOS, and what had actually happened was at some point someone released a similar grappling hook game while I was in development for it, and it was just so polished and so good looking. I was like, I can't even look at mine anymore. And so I kind of ditched that project. It was fun working on it though, and I still have the source code and stuff for it, but it's Xcode. It was Objective C. I made it using what's that platform? Cocoa 2D. And that was a lot of fun. But I wouldn't mind setting up something like that in Unity. But yeah, I mean if you guys ever have ideas, submit them, and I'll see about getting to them eventually. I'm more likely to do a new idea than go back to an older one, but I'm probably going to revisit my older projects too, just because as I progress, I get better at this stuff and I can explain the stuff better. And a lot of the projects are not very complete. That's part of the reason that I've been going long on the Star Fox one. I want to have one really good project that is totally complete and feels like a game, so that people can really see how much goes into this. And you can see a lot goes into games. It's hard to make a game in just a handful of hours. I might do more episodes too to try and get that. I can't commit to it just yet, but I wanna try and do that. So let's see. Going back to the Unity stuff, because this inspired some back and forth here. So here's a good question. This is a really, really good question. Edgar wants to know, most game companies still tend to rely on internal game engines or specific middleware such as Unreal. If I get a job at most companies, would I be suited by leaving Unity behind? This is a really, really good question. And I'm going to say that it depends. And I would say in almost 100% of the cases, learning Unity will help you. It will actually provide more business opportunities for you right now than Unreal or CryEngine. And I don't know about other middlewares such as Game Maker, but I'm pretty sure it'll do you better for Game Maker. Now, let me qualify that first, and then let me explain why that is my decision. So, the qualification is, if you have a specific studio you want to work at, and you really want to work at that studio, like you have this dream studio, and you want to work there, believe it or not, companies actually want people to apply that are excited at working at those companies. I know that sounds strange, but it's true. There's competition, of course, but it's not as bad as you would think. If you were going to apply to, say, Epic, please download UDK right now and start learning it, because you know that they're using Unreal. If you are going to work at Rocksteady, download UDK right now and start using it. If you're going to be working at Crytek, download CryEngine, start using it. Like, if you already know that the company you want to work for is using a particular tool, learn that tool now. Now, in all other cases, I say Unity, and there are a multitude of reasons. One of them is it is the easiest to learn out there right now. It is just incredibly well organized. It is great for making any type of game. You will learn more from Unity than you will learn from CryEngine or UDK, due to the fact that CryEngine and UDK assume right off the bat that you are making a first-person shooter. Unity does not make that assumption. And Unity is much better set up for making things that are not first-person shooters, which gives you a lot more of a range to work with. It also makes it so it's easier to learn, because first-person shooters are not the easiest things to make. They're actually very complex. A good first-person shooter is very difficult to make. Now, two, this is important, Unity and UDK and CryEngine are all very similar, and actually internal tools are similar too. I have used Crysis, I have used UDK, I've used the actual Unreal tools, and I have used some internal tools that I can't mention by name, unfortunately, due to contractual obligations. But and I'm going to tell you right now, the Unity is very similar to everything that you're going to be working with. It's all designed around making games. And the other thing is, companies that have internal tools are looking at Unity when they are updating their tools. They are trying to see what's good about that system, because there's so much good in there, and bring it into theirs. The buzzword of the year right now in development is component-based development. And Unity uses a component system for development, and a component paradigm. And I just use paradigm. I feel like a tool. So game companies are incorporating what is good about Unity into their tools. And so I don't think it will ever hurt you to learn Unity. Now, there's another question about C++, and once I answer that one, I'm going to actually cross-reference this one again, because there's another important aspect that you may not realize when you're starting out here, and it's something that you don't really want to think about, but it's important. But it fits in better with C++ then. So, let's see. If that's the case, let's see. All right, actually, I guess I'm just going to start talking about it now. Oh, okay, so this does not automatically update. So, should I just learn Unreal or C++ instead of Unity for most jobs? I would suggest learning C++ is an industry standard. So it's interesting to hear Unreal or C++. And it's valid. I'm not saying it's not. But if you're saying learning Unity or Unreal or building your own engine in C++, there is a dramatic difference in difficulty between making something in Unreal, making something in Unity, and making your own engine. I'm not saying it's something you can't do, and I'm not saying it's something you shouldn't do. You will learn a ton making your own engine. You will learn so much. I can't even describe to you how much you will learn making your own engine, and how many mistakes you'll make, and how hard it will be. But you will learn so much if you do it. But it's not... It's helpful in learning the programming. It's not as helpful in learning building games, because you will spend all your time working on the engine. So about C++ and about language choice, and this ties in with development tool choice as well. People seem to have this idea that they're going to learn one language and learn one tool, and that's it. That's all they're going to learn. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you think that is the case, you will not have a very long-term position in the games industry as a programmer or even as a designer, unless you really hunker down and get lucky. And the reason being is, typically, a lot of these tools have things that are in common. A lot of these languages have things that are in common. I personally know C, C++, Java, Objective-C, JavaScript, Python, Lua, C#, and pretty much any imperative language I'm pretty good with. I'm not as good with functional programming languages yet. I've learned some from. I actually have done some hobby work on Smalltalk, but it's not really that particularly useful. But yeah, so the thing is, I'm not bragging. Most people who work at the games industry in a programming capacity will be able to list off 10 different languages that they are proficient in. And that list is probably incomplete. They're probably not even including everything that they've learned. Because I've learned HyperCard. Do I put that on a resume? No. Because no one knows what HyperCard is anymore. And so the thing is, you're not going to learn one language. You're going to learn a bunch of them. So the question is, what do you start with? And I'd say the best starting languages are C#, C++, and C. Those are my favorites. Some people might say Python. Python is actually a really good language to start on for learning programming, just basic programming. It's a bad language to start with for learning games. I really think that, at least. I think C# is honestly probably the best choice because it gives you a lot of flexibility. It allows you to develop apps for Windows platform. It allows you to get in on interface development and stuff. It allows you to deploy to Xbox if you're interested in that, although that program's probably going to be phased out at some point. And of course, it's used by Unity. And so the thing is, you're going to be learning a whole bunch of words and stuff. Like when you learn C# in Unity, like a lot of stuff I show on the show, I show a lot of the basic elements of C#, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't even touch. And I don't even need to because the tools are well designed in Unity so that most of it's just calling into the functions that are built into the system. And so, so the thing is, you're not going to just stop at one language. You're going to continue to learn things. The question is where to start. Any of those languages will help you. Starting on Unreal, CryEngine, or Unity will be great. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Pick one that you like. Pick one that works well with you. Because the thing is, like, if you use Unreal and you're like, oh, I like this way much better than Unity, please use Unreal. Use it. It would be great. Because if you enjoy making the games, you will make more games and you will become better at faster. If you like the way Unity does things, use Unity. If you like the way CryEngine does things, use CryEngine. Like CryEngine has some really amazing terrain editing and stuff. Like, their road system is so cool and easy to work with. The way that you set up AIs to do patrol routes is super easy. And it's a really breathtaking engine. And so if that's something that appeals to you, and if you've worked on it and made some mods or made some level designs and stuff, that will help you. As I said, any of these are going to help you get a job, and any of these are going to help you learn how to make games. So don't get hung up on the choice, and don't be a fanboy. Don't be someone who's just like, oh yeah, it's Unity or nothing. Yes, I'm Unity biased. Yes, I point people towards Unity. Yes, I have a show that teaches people how to use Unity. But the thing is, I'm not saying that Unity's better than CryEngine. In certain aspects, it's terrible compared to CryEngine. I'm not saying that Unity's better than Unreal. In certain aspects, it's terrible compared to Unreal. And likewise, Unreal and CryEngine are equally terrible in some respects compared to Unity. And I'm not going to mention names, but I'm going to tell you internal tools. People think that the internal tools are better than external tools. Very rarely the case. Typically, the internal tools have idiosyncrasies to a spectacular degree because they don't have to be taught to anyone other than people coming into the company. And people who come into the company will be integrated into the culture and will be rolled into everything, and they will slowly learn all of the idiosyncrasies in the program. I'm not saying that the public ones don't have idiosyncrasies as well, but the internal ones have more. I'm just going to say that is the case in every one I've seen. I've only seen like 3 or 4. But they all have their own set of quirks and their own set of weirdnesses. So, let's see. And again, if you're focused on working on big game companies, right now they're not using Unity a whole lot, but they will know that there's value to people who know how to use Unity. And also, as I said, if you are just looking for a job, there's a lot of small companies using Unity. You're probably going to have a much easier time, especially getting started, because of the awful hell that is how much experience do you have. By the way, it's not a lie if you work your butt off for a few years on your own projects and say that that's experience, because it totally is. And even better, make an LLC. It doesn't cost that much. It differs per state, but like in Oregon, it's super cheap. It was like $50 to start up an LLC. Just say that you worked for them, because it's true. You own them. You can even say that, and it's great. It looks great on a resume. It shows that you understand a little bit of the business stuff, and you can then immediately, no one even questions the experience claims then, as long as you have projects to show. So let's see what else we got going on here. Can you explain how to do a save game? I'm gonna touch on that one later. I'm gonna show you 2 ways of doing it. One way is gonna use a third-party tool that's free. I think it's still free. There's a really good save program on the Unity Asset Store that will solve most everyone's needs for the complex type of saves. But I'll go into that in just a second. someone mentioned I'm sorry, I'm not reading names here. It's hard for me to pronounce some of these names. Uh, you might want to look into serializing your data types and storing them in player prefs. That's exactly right, from the basic level. Especially if you're working on mobile, player prefs is where it's at. You can do file saves into user data stuff, but it's a little bit more complex, and it might be necessary depending on the type of project that you're working on. So let's see. What do you think of network asset like Photon Cloud compared to Unity networking? That's a tough one. It's a tough question. I don't have a whole lot of experience with Photon Cloud. The whole point of Photon Cloud is they provide the hosting service for the matchmaking and for everything to get everything set up communication-wise. And so there's advantages to that because it means that you don't have to worry as much about the infrastructure side of things, which is a real problem when you're working on making a networked game. I would say they're a good place to start for things. Unity's built-in networking. I got the remote procedure call stuff working pretty well. I do not understand how it's organized for their network view stuff. Now, I had to use network views to get RPC working, but what I mean by that is, like, you can attach a network view to an object and have it monitor an object and have that object update on clients and servers appropriately, automagically. But I was able to get some basic tests set up on that, but I wasn't able to figure out how to actually like make the movement smooth and stuff using that. Like I understand the theory behind doing interpolation and extrapolation stuff, but I didn't even see really where to hook in on that. And then I've used a little bit of the Game Center plugin from Prime 31, and I actually really enjoyed that. This, of course, is iOS specific, unfortunately. But the thing with it is, Game Center, I had no realization how awesome that system actually is, because when you request a game and set up a game, it actually spins up a message passing server for you on Apple's cloud, kind of like Photon networking. So you don't even have to worry about punch through. Because they're basically proxying all of the data from each client to each other. It also means that there's more latency than some of the other solutions, but I'll take latency over people not being able to connect any day. So I'm sorry that's not a really clear-cut answer on that. I don't think you do yourself a disservice to learn either. I think Photon will get you up and running a little bit faster, though, because you don't have to worry about the infrastructure as much. Let's see. For when you get to it, would you be willing to do a bit on randomly generated terrain? I've seen a few tutorials on generating smaller terrain chunks and randomly generating worlds. Yeah, I love random generation because it means less content that I have to make, and I can make random functions way better than I can make content. So yeah, it's something I want to actually touch into. I actually specifically was I wrote a note to myself to work with some fractal terrain stuff just because I like the look of it. I was going to do some flat shaded fractal stuff, which actually fractal terrain isn't really the term for it anymore, but it is appropriate and it's also inappropriate. It's actually just height mesh terrain, I guess, for the most part. And so, yeah, I'd be more than willing. We'll definitely see that at some point. I was even considering doing it a little bit for the Star Fox project, but I think that project has enough jammed into it already. I really shouldn't have done 3 levels. I don't know what I was thinking, but I wanted more variety, so it happens. I'm a full-time code monkey, and Unity plus your tutorials have helped me start on my indie projects. Question: What was one of the biggest changes from software development to game development? Change from software development to game development. See, it's hard for me to tell because I started as a game developer. I grew up in the 80s. I had a subscription to Nintendo Power. I learned about Digipin through Nintendo Power. I learned that Nintendo was in Redmond, Washington, and I begged my parents to go there when we were on a trip to Washington one time, and they did, and it was awesome. It was like going to Mecca. Except for I had this vision in my mind that they had these assembly lines, and like L was making NES cartridges at the time, and obviously that's not the case. It was an office that was kind of unassuming. But I did get to play Super Nintendo before it came out in the U.S. over there, which was super awesome. So I've been a gamer my whole life. I grew up wanting to make games, and I grew up with a lot of the same frustrations that people have learning to make games, except without as many resources like the internet. And this is not me. I'm not doing the kids have it so easy these days. They don't. It's not. I mean, it's easier in some respects, but you still have to put the work in. It's not like it's a free ride. But the thing is. So I went to school for game development. App development is something that I did on the side to make some money because I didn't want to make games, because I didn't want to be breaking my non-compete agreement with Sony. And so I did app development initially, just to duck under that radar. And it was fun. It was fun doing app development. Actually, I enjoy it. I enjoy it quite a bit. The only type of development I don't really enjoy is web development, and I think that's mostly because when I was 14, I had a job at a startup company back in the .bomb era. For a web provider, and I had to deal with some web development stuff then. This was back in like HTML, like 1.0 days, and I remember arguing with people. I'm like, dude, we should support Flash. Why aren't we moving to Flash? This is like before Flash was a thing, and people were like, oh, you can't expect people to download 800K to play a Flash file. Like, no one's ever going to download an 800K plugin. It's like an hour of your time. And so it was kind of boring there, and then on top of that, I had to do search engine registration and tracking stuff, which worst job in the world doing search engine stuff, just because it's a huge amount of work. The results are easily trackable and they're unattainable. And so, like, people ask, so why isn't my company coming up first in Google? Or, sorry, it wasn't Google. First in Lycos. Let's see if anyone remembers that one. Or Webcrawler, or first in, this is before Northern Light, this is before Alta Vista, so it was Yahoo, I guess, was there. Hotbot, some of these old school names that no one remembers anymore. So why is my company not showing up when I search for internet? It's like, well, I mean, internet's kind of a common term on the internet. It's kind of hard to be top position for internet. Well, we wanted to be top position for internet. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to get it. So that was always fun. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there, but where are we doing this? I lost my place. Okay, so the biggest change, I don't really know, because they're kind of the same thing in my mind. I learned software development as a corollary to game development, and so yeah, I can't really answer it honestly, but I think what my little anecdotes probably help enough on that one. So did I miss some stuff here? Okay, no, I didn't. What's your favorite game? All right, interesting question. So the way I judge favorite games is a little different than most people. I don't have a top 10 list. I have games that stood out to be my favorite. I have a list of those games. There's a chronological list. So as a new game comes in and dethrones one of my previous favorites, it's my new favorite, and it goes on that list. Now, there's other games that I like a lot that are between these games. Like, if I was to actually spend the hours to, like, really think about it and really, like, go in detail and figure out what games I like the most, it would take me too much time, and I've never bothered to do it. But so there's a lot of games there's a subtle gradation between these games, but these are the games that stand out. So my latest one, people are going to laugh at this, Azura's Wrath is actually my favorite game right now. I love that game. I am not someone who is afraid of QuickTime events. I don't mind them in games at all. As a matter of fact, if there's something epic happening on the screen and I have to press a button for it to happen, I'm totally okay with that. I loved Dragon's Lair. I will admit it. I loved the arcade Laserdisc game of Dragon's Lair. It was a stupid game. It was broken in a lot of ways. It ate quarters like anyone's business, but I liked that game. So Azura's Wrath is a really good beat-em-up game, mixed in with a really good rail shooter, mixed in with a really good storyline, rendered on the fly, real-time cinematic experience with button prompts. and it's the most over the top game I've ever played. I love over the top. I love high action. There's another really close contender. It might even be beating Azura's Wrath in my mind now, but I have to go back and compare. But I really like Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance for similar reasons. I like over the top high end action games these days because that's all I have time for. And games, I've always wanted games to be like the games that they are today. Like, I'm not one of these old school gamers. Like, I love old school games. I love 2D games. I love all sorts of games. But as a kid, I would love some of the stuff that's coming out, and then sometimes I even get picky. Like, I'm really picky about games because I play a lot of them. Like, I remember I was playing War for Cybertron or the latest Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, and I'm like, oh man, there's this problem and there's this problem, and meanwhile, like Metroplex is stomping on enemies and building bridges for me to drive across. And I'm like, man, this kind of sucks. And I'm thinking to myself, man, my child version of myself, like if my 12-year-old version of myself came and saw me, he'd be like, there's no way this is me. Like, how could you not love what's going on right now? And so sometimes I do, and Azura's Wrath is one of those ones where everything clicked, and I just love that game. And that was made in Unreal, actually, and it always shocks me when people have good animation systems in Unreal. I'm not saying that Unreal doesn't have a good animation system. It's kind of designed, as I said, for first-person shooters, and so first-person shooters don't need as strong an animation system to work. But games like Batman, the new Batman games, prove that it is very capable at just incredible third-person and animated content. So Azura's Wrath is my top. I'm going to go back through my other favorites, though. My first favorite video game of all time was Chrono Trigger, and it was the first game where I played through it, and even halfway through, I wasn't even done with the game. I'm like, this is better than any game I've ever played. Like, period. It was just the greatest game I had ever played. And it stood out so much that I was just like, yeah, this is my favorite game. There's no, like, if someone asked me the question at that point, it was just Chrono Trigger. Best game ever made. And then the one that dethroned Chrono Trigger was Panzer Dragoon Saga. I played that one kind of after the fact. It wasn't, I didn't have a Saturn at the time that Panzer Dragoon Saga came out. I'm a big Dragon buff. I'm into Dragon stuff. But the thing is, Panzer Dragoon Saga is so incredible game world. Like, the story is just really tight. The other thing about Chrono Trigger and this game that have in common is they're both RPGs, and they're both about 10 hours long. And 10 hours is a really good amount of time for an RPG. It allows it's not too long. It doesn't just drag things out. Every single side quest is in both of these games have to do with the storyline and reveal stuff about the characters. This is not common in RPGs. There's a lot of RPGs that are 80 hours long, but like 40 hours of that content are grinding and just fluff content, stuff that doesn't have to do with the main characters or the story, and stuff that doesn't add to the universe. And then after that one, my next favorite game was Zone of the Enders 2, which is, if you haven't played Zone of the Enders 2, get the HD collection for PS3 or for Xbox. I think it's on both platforms. It's awesome. It is just, I love it. I love Hideo Kojima stuff. I love pretty much all the Metal Gear series. And Zone of the Enders 2 is this action giant robot, again, over the top, just amazing game. And it was out on PS2, and I still don't know to this day how they did the effects that they did on that game. There's stuff that still is not matched in graphical trickery in today's games. The closest stuff to it I've seen is actually in the new Devil May Cry game. There's a couple boss fights that actually show off people who actually know how to use render targets and do interesting things with frame buffer stuff, and there was all of these cool tricks that were used in Zone of the Enders 2. So I love that. So those are my top five, I guess. Top five of favorite games of all time. As I said, there's stuff in between them, but these ones are the ones that stand out over the time. So what's my favorite genre of game? Any that would inspire future projects for Cooking with Unity. So that's actually a tougher question for me than favorite game, and that's usually not the case for people. I like a lot of game genres. I'm kind of focused on action right now. Specifically, though, what I like gameplay-wise in games is I like skill-based action. And what I mean by that is best summed up, I think, in the Batman series. I love the Batman challenge mode stuff, because it punishes you for button mashing. I don't mind button mashing. I have no problems with button mashing. No judgment here on button mashing. But in that game, if you miss with an attack, you lose your combo. In that game, if you get hit, you lose your combo. The whole point of that game is to be perfect, and because Batman is basically perfect when he fights, right? And it gives you the tools to actually achieve that if you practice enough. I've got a couple of my high scores on here. I'm in the top 200, I think, for a couple of the challenges on the first game and the second game, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and I just really enjoy skill building. Like part of the reason that I enjoy games is to get good at these abstract concepts. I like being skilled at things. I don't get upset if I'm losing at things. I like playing games that challenge me as well. Like I'm not very good with turn-based strategy games, but I've been trying to get better at them because there's a lot of really cool games out there. Like I haven't played through Final Fantasy Tactics, and I know I'm missing out. And it's because I suck at it. I just can't handle the game. I'm not good at the strategy stuff. But I've been working on other strategy games to get skills so I can handle that one. My main problem is in that game you could lose characters easily, and I just can't handle that. It's just too much stress. So yeah, most of the time it's action. It's hard to say that I have a favorite specific genre though. It's just like whatever. I'm more about the games than I am about the genres. I'm more about the games than I am about the companies. And I'm definitely more about the games than I am about the hardware that they're played on. I don't care if it's on PC, Mac, console of any kind, Ouya, whatever. I want to play a game. So if it's a good game. Let me hit refresh on this and see what we got. Oh, there is a button to update automatically, but I missed it somehow. Maybe. So any news on future episode about modeling with your partner? No, there's nothing new on that. Justin doesn't really like to get in front of the camera, and my domestic partner might actually be into it too, but he doesn't really like to get in front of cameras. And he's done some video content though before, like for teaching. It was internal stuff for some stuff he was working on. But yeah, I don't have anything really lined up for that. The biggest problem I have is here's the biggest problem. The best software to make 3D stuff is 3D Studio Max or Maya or Softimage. It's one of those three. It might be all of those three. And they're all owned by Autodesk, and Autodesk is a horrible, terrible company. You hear me, Autodesk? You're horrible people, and you should be ashamed. And when I say that, I'm not talking to the people who make the software. Like, if you are someone who's working to make the software better, more power to you. I'm talking about your company that is around you, that is making business decisions, and has a monopoly on 3D development. That's the honest truth. They should not own all of the major development tools. That is a monopoly. That's the definition of one. And as soon as they bought, as soon as Autodesk bought, Autodesk was originally, was Autodesk Maya or was Autodesk, I forget which way it was. I think Autodesk was Maya, and then I don't even remember. But one of them bought the other, and as soon as that happened, the price went up 1,000. Right there, like they just immediately did it. There was no discussion about that. They're just like, oh yeah, we'll just raise the prices of both packages right now because why not? So the thing is, what's left is Blender. There's a few other software packages. Like I use Cheetah 3D myself, but the thing is, Blender's the only thing that's free for people to use that we could use as a teaching medium. And I'm not saying anything against Blender. I really am not. It's a really good package. It does a lot of things. Their interface is made by programmers, and I'm sure that there's some artists on their team too, but I mean, like, they're really highly technical artists, because I can't make heads or tails of that program, and I consider myself pretty technical, and there's a lot of like idiosyncrasies. And the other thing is, like, it changes every 3 versions, and I'm sure it is stabilizing more, and I'm trying not to be critical on this because I want it to get great and destroy Autodesk. I would love that. I mean, not destroy from. I don't want anyone to lose their jobs. I'm just saying that I want someone to shake it up so that Autodesk feels like they have to compete, as opposed to what they're currently doing right now. And so it's hard for me to commit to 3D development stuff. I was looking at some plugins for Unity. There's one called Game Draw. It's pretty decent. It does cost money, and it's got some problems that make it so I am uncomfortable using it when I'm using Unity because I feel like it breaks Unity's flow. But that might just be me. So the real truth is this is a tools problem, and so I'm trying to figure out the best way to approach that. I think the best way to approach it is just to hunker down and do Blender. But yeah, so that's my problem there. So I had a quick question about the fracturing tool you got, I think, a few months ago. That was only like $60. Yes, Ultimate Fracturing Destruction. Love it. What is the extent of that plugin? Have you been able to make a full game based around it? So the extent of the plugin is it's awesome, actually. Maybe I should just show. Why not? Give some free advertising to these guys. I'm going to just get this thing installing some... Yeah, I'll switch over to my screen. Hold on, so you can see what I'm doing. So, where did my asset store window go? So, downloads. Please note, just seeing things in my list does not mean that I love them, but it does mean that I was interested enough to either buy them or check them out. It's called Ultimate, right? No. Where is it? I'm just gonna search for it on the store. I hate this interface sometimes. Fracturing. There it is. Import. And yeah, give me all of that. So what it does is it allows you to break up arbitrary models into pieces and have them be physicsy. I don't think physicsy is a real term, but we'll go with that. And so that's the basic extent of it, but it is a really well-featured setup. Part of the reason I'm showing this is because A, we got a question, B, I recommend this. I actually really do like this setup. What I like about it is it feels like Unity. Like, there's a lot of stuff where people try to add a bunch of functionality to Unity, and it doesn't really add. It ends up changing the way that you work with Unity, and that's fine. Like, sometimes people don't even like the way Unity works in the first place, but I love the way Unity works, and so I don't like to have to deal with things in strange ways. So I'm going to just really show you a quick example here. I'm going to create a cube. I'm going to create... Actually, let's create a sphere. I like spheres better. Let's create a plane. Let's put it at 0, 0, 0. Let's create a sphere. Let's put it at 0, 3, 0. Let's put a directional light in here, and then let's try this script here. So I'm going to do assets create game object create other. There we go. Ultimate game tools fractured object. So the way this thing works is you drag in your source object. So in this case, it's my sphere. The object has to have a mesh renderer of some kind. So if you have a sub object or something, you need to set this up, and it's designed so that you don't just work with it as the fractured object. You switch the fractured object when you want the object to disappear. I'm not going to do that in this case, but that's the general idea. And I'm going to show we'll just do BSP for right now. So BSP is binary space partitioning, which just means it's fancy language for just cutting arbitrarily. And so I can just do preview chunks here, and we have an object that is already ready to explode here. And if we hit play, it should follow the surface and fracture. There you go. It's as easy as that. Now, the binary space partitioning is pretty good. It's fast. You saw how quickly it did the calculations. It also has the Veroni integration system, which this one is more for chunky stuff and looks a lot more realistic. And this one takes a little bit longer to calculate, but and all this is pre-calculated, so that's the advantage. You could use this stuff on mobile. I've actually played around with it on mobile. It's actually very fast. And actually, their algorithms are even fast enough to use in real time, but it is not initially set up for that. I've been doing that experiments by myself. The slicing stuff that you saw in my video, that's mine, and it's based on this stuff, but I can't release it because it's based on this stuff. I have been talking with the developer a couple times, to maybe add some functionality like that. But I kind of want to get it to the point where it's actually more useful, because what I have is kind of sketchy right now. I have problems with quality and stuff. So you hit play here, and so this one will crunch a lot more chunkier. And you see that there's pink on the inside. You can change that easily. All you have to do is change the interior material here. So if you just if I just create a material and say we just want to call it, just make it red on the inside. Actually, let's make it green. Let's not be red. It doesn't have to be red. So you just go into your fractured object and you just drag the material in. And where is it? Interior material. And now if you hit play, you'll see that it will now be bright green and properly shaded. And so that's how easy it is to set up initially. It has a whole bunch of features. You can set up things to explode. It has explosion helpers. It has scripts and stuff that are useful for all this. And then it has the more complex stuff, which I'm going to show one of their examples for. The arcs and columns example here. We'll just save this. Whatever. So this one, when you hit play here, you'll get to see. So you can create support planes, which are these. Okay, that's weird that it's not. Oh, I'm set to 4x3. Free aspect. And so the way this works is you can shoot these columns, and they chunk out. And if you shoot the bottom of them, they fall completely. And so, like, if you shoot this column out, you'll see that hangs there. But if you shoot this column out, the chunk falls, and you can basically do real structural integrity stuff with this. And the way it does it is super simple. All you have to do is, for the fractured columns here, all they had to do was set up a support plane, where you can see here that these blue planes are the support planes. And so any chunks that are connected to those will never fracture; they just stay on the ground. And all the chunks that are connected through them. I guess I can't undo that. You can see this. There's this lattice here, and it lets you see how things are interconnected. And then so you can set things. So you saw that I could blow up a column, and then if I blew up another column, the far away chunks fell. You can set the fracturing. Where is it? Like horizontal strength. I think it used to be called horizontal distance, which is a better, it was a better description before, but I think people didn't understand distance because they were thinking about it from a structural integrity standpoint when actually it's from a game development standpoint. But basically, anything that's 6 units far away, if it doesn't have anything supporting it, it will fall. And so so all of this stuff is configurable. It's super, super easy to use. Highly recommend it. It's awesome. So now that I've given the best advertising I've ever given to anyone for free, let's see what else we got on the list. Let's see. Am I able to make a full game based around that? Certainly, and I probably will make a full game based around it at some point. I still want to do one with my slicing thing because I don't see many games on portables that have slicing yet. So, what features do you think Unity is lacking or has badly implemented? Good question. Okay, so as you guys know, I am someone who, for a long time, complained about the quad primitive. These are really minor, nitpicky things, but these are things that do irk me because I know how easy they are to fix. So, the quad primitive was something that wasn't included in Unity originally and took until 4.2 to show up. And when it did show up, they did it wrong. And let me explain what I mean by wrong. So this is a stupid example thing, but you have this quad here, and here's my problem with it. See, it's facing so that its Z is facing out from its rendered surface. And the reason they did this is because they wanted to show, so if you were in a default setup and you drag in a quad, it shows up on the screen. That's the main reason they did it this way. And I understand and appreciate that, but they had another option to do that they should have done. So the reason why I think it should point a different direction. So there's two orientations that I think are appropriate. Either it pointing out the direction of the poly, I think that's the most appropriate, because then if you do a look at on a camera, it will point at the camera and be a camera-facing object, and that makes a lot of sense in a 3D game. Now, the other option, I think, is Z up or to the right. Though either of those is fine, actually, even an arbitrary direction, as long as it is one of the cardinal directions. But I would say up is probably the most appropriate, right the second most appropriate. The reason those are useful is in 2D games, say you have a character like a ship. If you make it so that the ship points, like you have a little triangle ship that looks like this, if it's pointing up and the Z is up, when you do a look at for an object that's in the same plane, it will point and look at that object, which is useful. This one is not useful in... This one is useless in almost every basic case. Like, in almost every case, I'm probably going to be having to use a negative to use this thing. And I'm going to have to use this thing now because I don't want people to have to download quads when there is a quad in the program. Now, what they should have done to solve both problems of user-friendliness and making it functional is the model should have pointed out this way, and the default, when you put it in the scene, should have had a 180-degree rotation. They have the technology to do so. If you create a... see, the plane's not a good example. There is an example here that actually does do that. So the directional light, right here, has a built-in rotation set up for it. It does not point in the Z direction like most prefabs. And so they can have it in their prefabs, and it would have been so easy, and now they can't fix it, because if they fix it, they'll break people's previous projects that use the quad. So, end of rant on that. So, other things I don't like. Create empty game object. This should also be in this create menu. There's no reason why it shouldn't be in this create menu. It should be at the top on this create menu. As far as strong things I don't like about Unity, as I said, I didn't really get their networking, but I don't know if that was me or if it was their networking. But most of the other stuff has been pretty intuitive. Let's see. There were a couple... I wish the batching was a little bit more explicit as to how it worked. Because I have situations where I think it's a bug in Unity, but I'm not sure if I just set it up wrong, where I get stuff that I think should batch, that use the same materials, use the same textures, basic case, all the models are under 300 polygons, and they don't batch. So I wish that there was better tools for dealing with that, and I wish it was more explicit. Like, I wish you could show batched objects by groups, like color code them by batching. There's little features and stuff like that would be nice. I also kind of wish that there was a way to set an initial orientation of a model when you import it, so that if an artist brings you a model that's not pointing towards Y or pointing towards Z, you can fix that without having to parent the object itself. You almost always have to parent the object if you're going to do any animation stuff anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, but that's one of my criticisms on that. So that's about the extent of it. What else? So the 2D stuff, I would say that 2D was badly implemented in Unity. I would say that Unity was not good for 2D. I have used the Unity beta, and it's awesome. I hope that they won't hurt me for saying that it's awesome, but it's awesome. I'm really excited for that to actually drop, because I can't wait to do some 2D tutorials for people, because people have been asking it for a while. And the honest truth is, the reason I haven't done 2D tutorials is because you need 2D Toolkit right now to do them, and 2D Toolkit costs money, and I don't like to have my users have to spend money on this. I want this to be as free as possible for as many people as possible. So let's see. I think that covers that. Unity Pro versus free. What are we missing with free? I actually have Pro installed right now, so I can show a few of these things. The main thing that you're missing is render targets and image effects. And so let me show you what I mean by that. A render target, if you create, let's see, I'm going to create a render texture here. We're going to call it texture. I'm going to create a new camera. So we're going to point this at, we'll point this here, and I'll take my quad and I'll spin it around. 0, and we'll make the quad bigger. We'll make it like 10 by 10. And actually, let's set it up so it's high up in the sky a little bit. And I'm going to apply this texture to it. And it's going to look really strange right now because it doesn't have anything rendering to it. And we have this camera here, and we're going to set its target texture to texture. And so now if you hit play, you can see that there is now the... and so the reason it's flickering is because the camera is actually seeing the texture again, and it's redrawing itself again. So this is actually kind of a bad example. So let me move my camera over, my main camera, over to here. And we'll move this over so that we don't have the flickering problem. And we'll hit play. And you'll see that I now have a rendering of what's going on in 3D in a 2D plane that I can, freely rotate around. And it's actually just textured on there. That's the main thing that you're missing. With this also comes stuff like render effects, which like I can do if I create if I import the image effects thing here, you can see some examples here, and this also includes stuff like refractive water that uses the scene. It's possible to do some of these effects. You can kind of fake them using some other Unity systems, but it's much faster and they work a lot better, and it's just really cool stuff. But it's almost all graphical fidelity stuff. Like, it's stuff that you really don't desperately need for games. It's mostly floofy stuff. But these are the two major features that are missing. What else is there's a couple things I've run into that are pro only. Okay, so one of the really frustrating ones, actually, this is actually one that I'm really frustrated by. For whatever reason, so there's Pro, and then there's Pro iOS, and there's Pro Android. And in order to do Pro Android or Pro iOS, you also have a copy of Pro. So that's a total of, what is it? I guess that's $3,000 for if you wanted to do like iOS Pro and the other thing, or it's $150 a month. If you want all three of them, it's even more. So now that I've got this going on here, I'm just going to create. So on this camera here, I'm going to image effects, rendering. Let's do bloom and flares. Hit play, and we'll see if this does anything. So now you can see that there's this glowing effect, and we can kind of adjust it to be more extreme. And you can see it goes outside the bounds of the image itself, which is nice. I played around with this a little bit on my latest project for Indie Speedrun. I haven't posted anything other than a what is it called, a time-lapse video of that. Mostly because I'm waiting for Indie Speedrun to actually be done so that I can send a link to what I submitted to them. I may put up a web version earlier than that, just so people can play around with it. But you get things like glow, depth of field, that type of effect, and you can write your own effects, and you can use image space stuff for the effects. So the thing that I was going to complain about, though, is there's a feature on Unity Basic. You can do anything that's in C#, like pretty much anything that's mono-based. You can do. There is a subset that it uses by default, but you can actually do the full thing. And even within the subset, it's a really good subset, including networking. However, if you were on iOS, that networking library is locked unless you have Pro. So that is something you can't do. You can't roll your own networking, which really, really bothered me because I was actually working on a networking system, and it's another problem with like Photon networking. You can't actually. I don't think you can actually use that on. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can actually use that on iOS unless you have a copy of Pro. You can use it on the PC and Mac executables just fine because they don't lock that access, and I have no idea why they lock that access. I really don't. So that's kind of annoying. There's a handful of other things. Most of them kind of have to do with the image effects stuff, but like there's some version control support that's not quite there. One of the things, and the thing is, I don't complain about it too much because honestly, I've used the Pro version and it's not that great anyway. So like version control has trouble with binaries, and binaries are files that are not human readable, right? They're not text files, and so the problem with it is if something changes in a binary, the whole binary could change. Like you change one byte and the whole layout of the file could change. And so you can't just rely on changing stuff in the middle of the files, and so version control has trouble with that. They have text-based representations for scenes. They have text-based representations for assets if you have Pro. But in my experience, there's still a lot of trouble with merging those assets. There's some tools on the asset store that alleviate that, but the base stuff still doesn't solve those problems. And a lot of them can be solved just by doing things right in your version control system of choice. I highly recommend either SVN or Perforce. I do not recommend Git for games. I recommend Git to heck and back if you are making a software project. If it is just source code, it is brilliant for just source code. It is not brilliant if you have binaries, and the fact that it does not have a concept of locking is a problem. Yeah, so that basically covers the pro features versus the free features. Do you think you could do Cooking at Unity at 8 instead of 8:30? I don't think so. The problem is Phil works sometimes long hours. I work sometimes long hours. We sometimes can't even make 8:30. And so it's hard for me. That's part of the reason that I don't like set up the shows like a week in advance, because sometimes we don't know if we're going to be a little bit late to get everything set up. And so, I mean, we do this in our spare time, and we're busy people. And so I would love to do it earlier, but I can't commit to that. So I apologize for that. Blender is free and is getting better. Totally is. I agree. I tried to be soft when I was talking about Blender because it is getting better. And it is a really full-featured program, and it can do amazing things. It's just right now it's a lot to chew and it's a lot to learn, and I just don't have the time to learn it, and Chris and Justin don't have the time to brush up on it. Justin could do a show right now on Max and Maya, no problem. Like he could teach you better than probably anyone else I know. But the problem is those packages are just so expensive. It's hard for me to justify doing a program like that. So it's just a matter of the experience thing. So I love Blender. Good. Let's see. Oh, we got a lot of stuff now. How do I keep missing that button. It like disappears. There's a button to update this stuff. I'm gonna switch back to my face because I've been just staring at a screen. Just the face. All right. Don't forget about save game, please. I won't. I swear. I'll show it. I'm probably gonna be answering questions for another hour. Unless everyone's gone, and then in which case I'll stop. But I've got the time tonight, and it's fun. What do you think of WebGL? Also tell Phil to do better in fantasy football. Adam is winning again. Okay, so that's my friend Willie. I probably shouldn't identify people like that, but I don't think he cares. He's awesome. Just great dude. But he's calling people out anyway. So, what do I think of WebGL? I haven't really thought much about WebGL, quite honestly. I think it's a great concept. I love HTML, Canvas stuff, and I've worked with OpenGL before. Some of my earlier projects were OpenGL projects that were based on stuff I learned from Nihi Productions. I'm not sure if you've seen those tutorials, but they're really good tutorials if you want to learn OpenGL and kind of roll your own engines and stuff. But the simple truth is, I try to avoid GL programming because it's lower level than I enjoy. I can do it, but I would rather be making a game than making a tool. And in order to start with anything like that, you need to make the tools first. And so I think it's great that it's out there, and I think it's great that I think it's a great platform. And I think web-based platforms are huge because so much is done on the web these days, and web browsers and computers are so capable it totally works. Sorry about that. Yeah, that about answers that. Do you still plan on making a Unity package for prototyping? You mentioned in an old episode about putting one together with useful scripts and putting it on the asset store. Yes, I am still planning on doing this. I really want to make a prototype pack. I have not had the time to do it. I have a collection of scripts that are candidates for it. But I want to have a few really complete systems in there that make it so that people can rapid prototype. And what I wanted to kind of do is once you'll know when I do it, because I'm going to try and like set up a small game jam type thing myself, and just have people submit their games if they're interested in doing it. And I'm going to include my prototype package for that. And I'm going to try and market it through other things like that too. But I really want to make a setup like that. I want to make it cheap, and I want it to be just really useful stuff so that you can just drag and drop things together and make a game. The main thing that Unity is missing right now compared to like Game Maker is it feels like Game Maker has a bunch of built-in functionality that just sets things up for you really easily, and it's really easy to add that to Unity, and I just want to do that. Don't forget about save game. I won't. I haven't, I swear. What's all this geek stuff you boffins are going on about? You nerds all crammed in here. I was looking for Grand Theft Auto 5 streams. Alright. That's awesome. So, who is this guy? Where are the people that will be making GTA 6? Oh, good. I think I actually hit the button so it goes now. So, what is going on here? Alright, with currently existing technology like the Oculus Rift, nice Metal Gear reference, like the Oculus Rift and Sixth Sense motion stuff like STEM, what do you think we'll have when do you think we'll have VR games by the 80s, 90s definition? Well, oh, this makes me sad. I can't talk about the protocols thing, so I'm not going to talk about that right now, but there's stuff with that. By the 80s, 90s definition of VR, like full body, mind experience stuff, is coming. I mean, we've got the Oculus Rift, we've got that walking controller thing for it, and so it's just a matter of time. I love the Oculus; it's really cool. The problem with it is it still takes a lot to set up, and it doesn't allow you to really use your computer with it, so you have to switch between screen and that a lot. I'm sure they'll fix a lot of it. They'll have a lot of this stuff figured out by launch, but it's just still a lot of setup now. And but it'll get better. And the thing is, I'm not sure how many people are that interested in VR and stuff. I mean, I know that there are people who are really interested, like me and stuff, but there's a lot of people who are pretty happy with the screen in front of them, and are pretty happy with the 3D on that screen in front of them that they have these days. So I'm not sure if we'll ever see a widespread adoption of VR, but I would love to see it. The other problem with VR right now is it feels antisocial just because there's not enough content that allows people to work together. Like, it's going to be extra social once there are systems in place for VR users to mingle with each other virtually. But as it is right now, if you're in the same room as someone who's using a VR headset, it's hard to talk to them, and they will admit that, and they actually feel locked out. Like, when I have my headset on and there's people in the room, I want to take the headset off because I'm like, I want to be part of the conversation. So there's still little things to figure out for that. I'm not sure exactly when. Now, it might actually not be widespread until there's eyeball replacements, which will happen. I mean, there's going to be a point where we're going to have digital eyeballs, and it's going to start as a prosthetic, and then later people are going to intentionally replace their eyes. And at that point, and I think that'll happen before we have a direct neural interface. Well, I mean, it is kind of a direct neural interface, but you know what I mean. It will be, instead of just like having a headset that goes on over here and just transmits dreams to you. I think we're going to see it through your optical stuff. All this hardware up here, we're going to replace that. And at that point, you'll be able to play fully immersive visual experiences very easily. And you'll see that to be a huge thing at that point. You bunch of nerds talking about Star Fox 90s games. What is this guy? This guy's hilarious. Except for, I kind of wish he wasn't here. I don't know. We're talking about making games is what we're talking about. So, if you're interested in making games, start watching my channel. If you're not interested in making games, don't watch my channel. Not sure if you're into networking, but I don't think this is Unity specific. How would you handle physics? Would you have the master client send velocity to other players? DeanSync concerns me, though. Depends on your physics system. If you're using Unity, I would send collision events. I've done this before for networking on Unity stuff. I would send collision events, and the velocities, I would have objects owned by a particular player. In the case of stuff that's fluff, I don't send. You just have it simulate on both sides. Who cares if it's different? What I mean by fluff is like if you shoot a can in Counter-Strike, you don't have to network that. Who cares? No one will notice. And the in the case of Unity, I wasn't able to get so. The reason it depends on the physics system is because if you have a truly deterministic physics system, that's the best way to roll, because then you can just send the impact events, and everything should resolve exactly right. Like, as long as the states are the same between the systems, it'll work properly. I couldn't quite get. I'm not saying that Unity's system is not deterministic. I just wasn't able to figure out exactly what I was changing between the two that was making it non-deterministic in my case. What I mean by deterministic, it means that if the same values are put into the equation, the same answer will come out every time. That's what deterministic means. And deterministic is really important in this type of thing, because it means that if one side can put in the numbers and the other side can put in the numbers, the result will be the same on both sides, and you don't have to individually track the objects then and send the updates as to where the object actually is. So it depends on what you're using. As I said, with Unity, I wasn't able to get as good a deterministic results as I wanted, but I got pretty good with just doing the collision event stuff. Occasionally there were desyncs, but the thing is, at the next collision event, it would fix itself up nicely. Let's see. Master client send velocity to other players. I always do peer-to-peer networking just because I can't wrap my head around server, and there's some people who think server and client works a lot better, and I'm sure that it does, especially if you have like network rollback and stuff. But that's beyond what I've done for networking stuff. So most of the time I work with peer-to-peer stuff. So that being said, I do have the concept of ownership in a lot of cases, like I mentioned. So I did when I was working on one project, I had this kind of paddle arena thing. And I made it so that when the ball was coming towards you, you owned it. And that way, when you hit it, everything was exactly responsive and perfect. And then when the ball was heading towards the other player, they owned it. And so it was based on whether the ball was going one direction or the other, who handled the updates. And that way, the illusion is to the player that everything's networked nicely. So the only time that you'll see a discrepancy is when the other player is hitting the ball. He might be in the wrong place to hit it in the direction that he hit it, but for the most part, it covers itself up pretty nicely. In the case of networking, you have to sometimes lie to your players. In the case of all programming, you have to, in all game development, you sometimes have to lie. If you're doing something new, you're going to be lying to your players at some point, because you can't calculate everything perfectly. Grand Theft Auto, I mean, and they're little lies, like Grand Theft Auto 5, because someone was mentioning Grand Theft Auto 5. Let's talk about Grand Theft Auto 5 briefly. I want to actually do some videos on it because I actually love the game. Who would have guessed? It's a great game. And I of course thought it was going to be a great game because I love the whole series, even the 2D ones. But the thing is, if you look at the reflections on the cars, they reflect the city around them. And if you drive by a building, you'll see the building in the reflection, and you won't see the people in the reflection, and you won't see the other cars in the reflection. So those are a couple lies right there. And then the other thing is, you're seeing the lowest detail or very low detail in the reflection. That's another lie. And the other thing is, the way that they do this right is they have another camera showing, like I showed briefly with the render target stuff. They basically have a render target creating a cube map for the car. From a render position, and they're only doing that once. They do it for your car, and then they use that same texture on all the other cars, and that way you only have to render that scene once, one extra time, and you get the reflection on all the cars. But technically it's not right, but it's close enough that no one ever notices or cares. So it's in the case of networking, there's a lot of times when you have to like lie to people, and then there's things that are cool you can do with networking too. Like if you have random elements, you can actually network that without ever sending data, if your systems are deterministic again. Like, so if you have a random seed set on, you just send that at the beginning, and then if you call random in sync on both sides, you will always get the same numbers over and over again, because random's not really random; it's pseudo random. It's a fake version of random. So let's see. Not sure if you're into networking. Okay, more stuff about nerds. Are you a jock, or are you just a... What are you? Like, do you self-identify as anything? I self-identify as a nerd. I'll fess up to that. Or a geek. Either or. I like both of those. So, have you done weather effect in Unity? I have not. And I'm not gonna say I don't have the talent for it. I just haven't done it. But I will say that playing again Grand Theft Auto 5, some of the best environment stuff I've ever seen for just color grading and fog effects, and it's got ground fog and all sorts of stuff. And when I see that, I'm just like, man, that's a lot of work. I don't think I could ever do that, but I'm sure I can at some point. It's also shader work, which I'm not hugely talented with shader stuff yet. I've only done a basic episode on shaders that was cheating, quote unquote, and using Strumpy Shader Editor. But I'm learning some of that, and hopefully I'll have more insight into what you can do for weather effects and stuff. Now, as far as like how I would do rain or how I would do snow, most of that's particle work. The basic thing is you want, like for rain, for example, the basic thing is you need to have the rain that comes down, right? That's the one that everyone knows that you need to have. Then the next effect that's really useful to have is on the edges of all objects, you should have a splatter effect, because that makes it look like the rain's actually hitting stuff. Then you need to have kind of reflective, shiny environment map stuff to show the water on the ground so that it looks like water. And then there's additional fluff that you can put in, like having camera rain, where if it like hits the camera, it slides down the screen. I still think my favorite version of that so far has been in Metal Gear Solid 2. Had just really beautiful water that would slide down the screen when you had rain, and they did. And then another one I really like is actually for PSP. There's a Wipeout game that's really awesome, and they did a rain effect that was really convincing. Looked a lot like rain on a windshield, and they did it without any screen space effects whatsoever. It's just a little texture, and it looks so right. I might have to show that on my show sometime. Let's see. So I have not actually done weather effect on Unity. I guess I could have just said no and left it at that, but I didn't. Really looking forward to the 2D tutorials when 4.3 comes out. So am I. I haven't made a 2D game in a long time, and I'm excited because I can kind of do 2D art. When I say that, it's a lie. I actually can't do 2D art anymore better than I can do 3D art. But sometimes you can get away with really bad 2D art and have people think that it's kitschy. I'm going to hit refresh just in case the automatic updates are not actually working. And they were not. So, are there any changes you would make to modern controllers? Yes, 6 buttons on the face. On all controllers. Requirement. The simple thing is I like fighting games, and a lot of fighting games are six buttons, and I think that we're at the point where we're already running out of buttons. Like, if you look at Grand Theft Auto 5, again, they're using the right on the D-pad for like 30 different things, and that just makes me uncomfortable. So yeah, I think 6 buttons on the front would be good. I wouldn't mind having a screen on my controller. I wouldn't mind having a touch surface on the controller. I think all those are cool. I don't know about the touchpad thing that Steam's coming out with, but it's oh god. Okay, I'm going to disable this because it doesn't actually work. Sorry, my iPad just started going crazy. So, controllers. Extra buttons, shape change sensors. We already have, I mean, everyone throws motion control and everything, so we have that as a thing. I don't really think that's always a good idea, but it's not bad to have. I like having vibrate in the controllers, keep that in there. Haptic buttons would be awesome. I would like to see all the controllers have analog buttons, even though Microsoft got rid of that when they went to Xbox 360. They had analog buttons on the Xbox One, and a lot of people don't realize that, but they were analog. And I actually like the way that they handled their analog buttons even better than the PlayStation ones, which is saying a bit because I actually like the PlayStation analog buttons too. PlayStation 3 still has analog buttons. I think the new one still has analog buttons. I'm not sure if analog buttons are coming to and I'm not saying that the shoulders aren't analog. I'm saying that all the buttons on the controller are analog, with the exception of start and select. I think those ones aren't. But even the D-pad on the PS3 is analog. People don't realize that. It's not used that way very often, but it is analog. Screen hardware, yeah, I mean, I'm into all of it. As long as it's comfortable to hold. That's of course subjective. It's hard. People have a range of hand sizes. I wouldn't mind seeing more openness in console developers and stuff to allow third parties to utilize their systems better, because I think third parties should be filling in the role of making controllers for people who have bigger hands or smaller hands and stuff. And And I think first party should do it too. Like I think there should be two sizes of controllers and everything. Not necessarily like the Xbox One thing where, well, not the new Xbox One, but the old Xbox One, the one where it was like this big and then the next controller was this big. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe we do need big controllers still, but my big problem with the old Xbox controller was the buttons were in a diamond configuration rather than a kind of squared diamond configuration. So I kept sliding off to the white and black buttons. To be specific, I had a nostalgia trip regarding Crash Bash. I was thinking about remaking the Ballistics minigame. Crash Bash is a Crash Bandicoot game. I don't think I've actually played it. I don't know what the Ballistics minigame is. To be specific about what? Oh, I see, for physics. Okay. Cool. Remake it. That sounds awesome. I like minigames that get remade into full games. Have I taken a look at Shader Forge? I have not taken a look at Shader Forge. I will totally look at Shader Forge. My problem with Strumpies was that the code generated was not optimized by any stretch of the imagination. It was good in basic senses, and the other thing was, like, honestly, I've been working with some of the CG code now. It might actually be easier to write stuff in CG than it is to use Strumpy Shader Editor for me in some cases, just because it's easier for me to just type things out at this point than connect things up in a wire interface. Shaders get really complex real quick, and so that wiring can be a hassle. So I have not checked that out yet, but I will totally check that out. I'll put it on my list to check things out. So I came back here by accident for GTA 5 stream. I'm ashamed of myself. Then he talked about games I liked. Okay, cool. Good to have you here. I mean, if you're watching me and you're not bored, I'm excited because I have no idea how I view to non-nerds, I guess. So, the all caps is interesting, but maybe there's other reasons. Controls need 6 buttons on front for games like Street Fighter. That's it. Exactly. I said that, and yeah, I love Street Fighter, and I love having 6 buttons. I have to have a separate fight pad now because I'm a pad person. I don't like the stick stuff. That's not true. I like the stick stuff. I'm just not good with it. I grew up with Super Nintendo Street Fighter, so that's kind of what I'm used to. Scuff controller. I have not seen that. I'll look it up though. Thanks for the wonderful stream. I look forward to your other videos. So it looks like we're probably wrapping up, except for the fact that I had several reminders to do save game stuff. So I'm going to do that real quick. Because the basic stuff is pretty simple, and I'll show you what plugins make the non-basic stuff easier. So I'm going to switch back to the screen. And save data. So if you have like a high score or something to save, it's super easy. All you need to do is just use the player pref stuff. So if you go to C# and do player preferences test. I'm just going to create this real quick. So I'm going to just create a void on GUI here so that we can do some real basic debug work. We're going to put a GUI layout dot label. We're going to call it points and plus points, which we'll create as a variable in a second here. Int points equals 0. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to, in update, we're just going to increment the points by 1. So points plus plus. And so if we hit play on here, you should see in the corner text that says, oh, interesting. I'm going to get rid of the bonus camera right now. I'm going to get rid of this thing. And we can put the camera back where it normally lives. 0. Save. Oh, I haven't attached the script to anything, of course. I'm going to put this on the camera. It doesn't have to be on the camera, but I'm putting it on the camera. So there we go. You have points. It goes up. And if you hit play again, the points go up from 0 again. So the way you would save the point value is you can do player prefs dot set float, set int, and then you have a key. So I'm going to call this high score, all caps. It doesn't have to be all caps. Actually, we'll do whatever, high score. But it is case sensitive, so you have to keep that in mind. And the value will be points. And then in the start function here, we will do player points equals player prefs dot get int high score points. So you hit play, and it says points 30, 50, whatever. It's 104. You hit play again, and it starts at 104 and goes up. You stop and you hit play again. It was at 122, and it starts at 122 and goes up. So it is now actually saving that, and that will work on all platforms. That'll work on the editor. That'll work on the web stuff for your local machine. It doesn't save it to a cloud or anything magical like that. It'll work on iOS. It'll work on Android. And so that's the really basic stuff. Now they have all sorts of things here. So they have player prefs dot get int float and string and set int float and string. So anything that can be described as an int, a float, or a string, you can save that way. Now the trick is with stuff that is not described that way. So that you probably have stuff where you want to save like the player position, which is a vector 3, or which you could save that as 3 separate ints, but that's a lot of hassle and stuff. Or say you want to save. Actually, there's not even a boolean, but you could just save that as an int, I guess. I don't know why there's not a bool. That seems like a strange thing to not have. Yeah, weird. So that's the basic thing, and you can just save whatever you need, and you just give them all different labels, and it'll save those labels. And this is, as I said, the basic lookup. You can just look for player prefs, and you can get more information about it. Now, if you want to do more complex stuff, I highly recommend in the asset store. Let's see if I can find it in my stuff here. Save game JSON plus binary, which I think this is free on the asset store. At least it was when I got it. So save game. Let's see what it says. There's probably a link I could have clicked through on that. Oh well. Yep, it's free. And what this does is it can save like the state of everything in a scene to a JSON file, and that JSON file can then be reread. And you can do this. I think this will work on any platforms. Yeah, see, it works on PC, mobile, and the web. And he has this thing set up really nicely to save the state of things. So let me see if I can actually make it work real quick. I haven't needed this, so I haven't actually done much play with it other than I didn't mean to do that. Okay, well, it's updating now. Well, I'll play around with that later. We'll come back to that and show it. It's really easy to use, though, and at least in my basic tests. And so just play around with it, and I think it has pretty good documentation, too. And it's free! So, let's see. Of course, I come in late. You're here, though. Go ahead and ask your questions. And the stream, you can rewatch this anytime later, so it'll be saved. What are your thoughts on the Steam machine? Think it's awesome. I'm going to switch back to my face. I think that the Steam machine stuff is great. I'm excited to see what it does for things. I'm also really excited about SteamOS because, quite frankly, the only reason I boot into Windows at all is to play games at this point. And so I'm happy that Steam is stepping up and finally making a gaming-oriented operating system. And maybe we'll see that game developers for PC will flock to that. Hopefully they will. They probably won't immediately, but you never know. The trick with that one is, of course, development for it. I'm not sure if it's just going to be like development for Linux, or if Steam is going to be addressing the development portion of things too, to make libraries that are specifically designed and geared towards that operating system. But I'm excited to try it out. So I think I like innovation in the industry of any kind, and so that I consider that a good step in the right direction. It's kind of consoleizing the PC in a way, but also, I mean, consoles have been kind of PCizing a lot, so it all gets crossed up. But yeah, I haven't really thought really deeply about it, just because I don't know. I've heard that you can stream from a Windows PC as well, so that solves one of my problems. I'm a laptop person. I really like using laptops. I do not like using PCs, and I've never built I've built some PCs for other people, but I've never built a PC for myself because I don't like desktops. And so I would happily build one and put it in a closet, though, and then stream it to my system. I think that would be awesome. Or stream it to my TV. Thank you. I learned some really amazing things in just a short time. Much better than watching GTA 5 streams. Sorry about caps, but my sister's old laptop's caps stuck. LOL. I don't know if you're trolling or if this is just the most awesome thing in the world, but I'm gonna just assume it's the most awesome thing in the world. So thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy all this. I was thinking of save state like RPG. So again, so it's serializing. It's just so save state like RPG. RPGs are the hard one, aren't they? So every chest that you've collected is a bool. Have a chest. I mean, like you can set that as an int. It's 0 if you haven't collected it. 1 if you've collected it. If you need stuff like item management stuff, all that is that's hard data management. Like that's not something that I can just solve with a wave my hands and be like, hey, download this and it'll solve all your problems. There are a couple of libraries that are set up for this type of data, but yeah, you're going to have to be developing your own data systems anyway, just to store the state of things beforehand. And so, just any of that state information you save to player prefs or you save to a file. And that JSON library thing that's built into that save game manager will totally help you with serialization and deserialization of assets. So if there's anything you want to save, that thing is a good place to start to learn this stuff. I will make a point to do an episode about an RPG at some point, which will have to include this data management stuff, and that's part of the reason I haven't done one yet. The other reason is because I'd like to do a 2D one, just because I like 2D RPGs. But so yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer that in this short Q&A session, but I will. That will be on the menu in the future. So because RPGs are always, people always want to do that stuff. They're content heavy though. That's the reason I always have trouble with RPG stuff, because I'm not content friendly. So despite Unity's GUI system being horrible in general, I like that it's not object based. So example, you wouldn't need a reference to change something like a label. Yeah, I disagree completely. Well, that's not entirely fair. Unity's. I forgot to mention. So Unity's UI system is useless. That's my opinion on Unity's UI system. But I would rather do things like, I like things to be object based. I actually prefer that. That's just part of the reason I like Unity is because of that, and that's the type of mentality I like to have coming into things. And so I kind of flock to that. I actually don't mind having references between things to update objects and tags and lookups and stuff like that. And I don't mind building things out of components. And if I was building my own UI system, it would probably be game object centered to a certain extent. But I would want to have things pre-connected and have things be smart about how they do things too. I would make it user friendly. It's just, but the big problem is like. To make a good standardized user interface, Unity's built-in stuff doesn't work very well. NGUI is actually pretty good. I've used it a couple times. It's just it's a bit to learn, and it's not really, as I said, it's not really Unity style in my opinion. But that might just be me not having an open enough mind. And it doesn't solve the problems I have with UI design. Like, what I want is, I want something kind of like the way Apple sets up their UI stuff, where like there's a concept of buttons that are already built in. And you can skin all this stuff, but like the defaults look good. And so there's buttons, there's sliders, there's all the things you need. There's a really good layout system where you just are like, if you want to type in the layout, it comes up beautiful. If you want to drag elements in, they automatically snap to where is appropriate for the user interface. I want it to be really. I want to do all the work it can do for me, because otherwise making UIs is boring. And so yeah, and that I think is going to be changing, because so Unity has been working on updating their UI system for a while. I think part of the reason that they didn't actually continue to do so is because of NGUI coming in, doing a good job, and they didn't want to take away their proceeds, because basically if Unity creates a really good UI system, no one's going to buy NGUI anymore, or NGUI's going to have to step up and be a competitor towards it, which is interesting that they'd be competing with people that they're also getting money for. I don't know, but I think they wanted to get away from that. I'm still not sure exactly how they're going to justify the 2D stuff with 2D Toolkit, because it's going to kind of do the same thing. But with their 2D stuff, I think they're going to be bringing out I'm not saying like on the same day, but their 2D stuff is a stepping stone for making proper two-dimensional and three-dimensional, for that matter, interfaces for user interface design. And so when the 2D stuff drops, after that I think we'll see a Unity-based system that's really awesome. Until then, the built-in stuff is really good for just, like I did for that test there, it's good for just getting some debug information on the screen, but I consider it a debug system. I think that it's better to build stuff out of text elements and roll your own stuff. So, and I'm sorry that you like this not object based. So you probably would like InGUI. Oh, it's object based. I guess it is object based. I don't know. Like I didn't like the way InGUI was set up. So, but I don't like the way regular Unity set up for the 2D either, or for the user interface stuff either. Let's see. So, am I actually at the end of time here? I'm at the end of time. Not the end of the time that I have. I could answer some more questions or do a song and dance. I'm not doing a song and dance. Maybe I'll do a song and dance. No, I'm not going to do a song and dance. So, if there's any other questions, go ahead and post them. What else was there? Was there something else I wanted to show? Oh yeah, the save game thing. So let's see if maybe this will still help you out. Let me switch back to my screen here. Main screen. I'm gonna import this stuff. Import. I actually have a friend who's he has a really good script-based UI system that I've been begging him to port to Unity, and he now actually likes Unity, so he might actually do that. So I've been telling him, dude, it's easy money, make this and sell it, and people will love you for it. And so if that ever shows up, I will immediately let you know, because A, I want him to do it and have money, and B, I think you'll like it. I just want this somewhere else. Whatever, I'm closing it. So I've got the Unity serializer here, so let's see how this stuff works. Getting started guide, we could look at that, or I could just play with things until it works. Scripts. Alright, fine, I'm going to read it. Getting started guide. There's a Unity serializer wizard. Okay, so... Wait, where is it? There it is. Unity serializer wizard. So, create a new save game manager. Capture all objects. Alright, I don't know what that does. So, if I hit play now, it does that. Alright, so let's see the save game manager. Required objects 0, tracked objects 0. Okay, that doesn't help us. Alright, getting started. So preparing a scene. Get that sign button to make an existing object into that, so we don't need that. Don't put any script on scenery, items that don't move, that makes sense. Prefab identifier. So we don't care about prefabs right now, so let's just variables to save. I'm naturally doing this dry here, so, and as I said, I didn't play around with it too much. Store information. So let's do store information on this fractured object. And so if I hit play, and it crumbles, and I unhit play, when I hit play again, it still crumbles, so that doesn't help us. Prefab, storing information, storing materials, attributes, skipping initialization, Loading and saving games. Checkpoint and resume functions. Example scripts. Yeah, I don't have time to go into this right now, but I may actually show this on a full episode at some point. Just because it does work. I have actually gotten some test cases working, but as I said, I haven't actually used this for a full project yet, and the last time I played with it was a while ago. But it's pretty easy to set up, and the other thing is it has good serialization stuff built into it. It has a JSON serializer built into it, so if you want to manually serialize data, it's very easy to work with. Serialize chess data into strings. Yes, exactly. 2D RPG in Unity 4.3. Yes, I would love to do that. 2D roguelike would be cool. I agree. That being said, I'm really excited about a 3D roguelike that's coming out called Routine. You should definitely check it out if you haven't heard of it. It looks awesome. It's 80s style sci-fi movie, but currently it's as if the game was made in the 80s and was on a moon base in the 80s that doesn't exist, and so it's all like old school tech and stuff, and it's a humans versus like old school automaton robots and stuff, and it's designed to be brutal, and it's designed to kill you, and it's one life to live, and it's like a roguelike in that respect, and the levels are randomly generated and stuff, and it looks really awesome. What's your take on the Steam controller thingy? He could play Super Meat Boy well with it. Wow. Really? Wow, that's impressive. I don't know. I saw it and I didn't... I mean, I like my touchpad. But I don't know. It depends on how it's implemented. It might be great. And I would love it to be great because I like having new types of interface stuff, but I'm really used to buttons. I really like buttons, so I'm not sure how I feel about it, honestly. And I like sticks too. I like the analog sticks. I kind of been used to those over the years, but I'm interested to see how it actually goes. I don't want to pass judgment on that one until I actually have one in my hands. If you can play Super Meat Boy on it, though, I mean, like, did he do good at Super Meat Boy? Because I mean, you can play Super Meat Boy with an iPhone, but you wouldn't get very far. But I don't know. That's cool. Hand-built GUI, only way to go. I generally agree with that, with the exception of anytime that you have a lot of data. If you're making a Diablo game, you can't hand make the GUI. It's not an option. You need to build a robust GUI system for a game that has huge amounts of stats and data that are on a variety of different types of screens and stuff. But yeah, I didn't like the way GUI was either. Hopefully the new GUI isn't replicated. I'm not even sure if there is a new GUI yet, but yeah, I agree. Thoughts on fan games? I guess you mean fan games, remakes, own ideas with the license as a learning experience. So that's a tricky one. This goes into the big copyright debate and the way things work and the way things don't work. I would like to see a society where fan games are totally okay if they're non-commercial, and I would like to see a society where fan games are okay even in some commercial uses. The simple fact is we live in kind of a litigious society, and part of the reason is because copyright is a right that has to be protected by use. And that's actually more to do with the theory of law than it has to do with the way law is written. It happens to be written that way too, but the thing is, rights are rights because people fight for them. Like, this is how it's an organic thing that gets written into rule books after the fact. The rules follow the function. And so the thing is, good example. I was super excited about the fan remake of Chrono Trigger. There was this really brilliant fan remake of Chrono Trigger, and Squaresoft came in, or Squeenix, or Square Enix, or however you want to call them, cease and desisted them and said they couldn't release their project. And that's a bummer, because I wish they'd instead been like, hey, this is really cool. Let's work with you to release this. Like, I would like to see more game companies like collaborate with these folks rather than shutting them down. I mean, like, as far as for learning experiences, absolutely. If you're doing something for your personal thing, do it. It's well within fair use. If you're doing it for yourself, it's not even a legal issue. It's only an issue when you start distributing it, and it's not just when you start profiting from it. It's when you start distributing it. Like, people have this concept that if you're not being paid for it, it doesn't matter. If you're not being paid for it, people don't care as much. It doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. And so, and who you're doing stuff with changes the way things work on this. I was thinking, actually, even earlier today, it would be cool if, so like one of the things that I think is really cool is Creative Commons. So copyright doesn't actually allow copyright to expire before its expiration date. It's not in the rules at all. You can't be like, hey, this is public domain now. You can't just say that. Certainly worldwide you can't say it, but even in the US you can't just be like, hey, this is now public domain. So what Creative Commons is they're a license holding company, basically, that is a nonprofit, where you can say, these guys own the license to my content, and that license says that anyone can use that content anywhere as long as they say that I made that content, that the original creator made that content. Which is great. It allows people to release things into the public and allows people to collaborate on things. And so if something's in that license, you can use it. It's like royalty-free stuff, except for and it's not saying that the copyrights are not reserved by the original author, but it's also additionally giving copyright to everyone else. What I would like to see happen is something that's a little bit more modular than that, though. What they have a few different systems and stuff, but it's for releasing a whole work into the public domain. The simple fact is, copyright extends well beyond work. Intellectual property extends well beyond the work itself. It extends to derivative works. It extends to character licensing. It extends to other things. Like you could have, say you have a commercial and you want to use Super Mario Brothers in your commercial. You could license the use of the character Super Mario from Nintendo if they wanted to, if you had enough money, and put him in your commercial and with other stipulations and stuff. And they'll give you the rights to show Mario. But that doesn't mean that you could make a Mario game. It just means that you can use Mario in the commercial. And I'd like to see something like Creative Commons, except for where you can actually just license, like a company is like, hey, I don't make stuffed animals, but it would be really cool if you made stuffed animals of our game character and sold them. We wouldn't mind at all. So we're going to release the license for creating stuffed animals for our product to everyone. And you can profit by it if you want, and it's fine. We just want to have stuffed animals of our characters. And I think it would be cool to have something that was kind of modular, that allowed you to pick rights to give to people and to open up, and maybe even make it so that you could use it as a rights purchasing store. What's the music one? Apps. Why can't I think of it? Music licensing. Stock music, taxi. None of these are actually music law, SESIC. ASCAP. There we go. So this is the one that if you want to license music like the big boys do, this is who they go through. This allows you to get licenses. Like, if say you're Weird Al and you do a sorry, I didn't actually have the page up. Hold on. Main screen. Whatever. Main plus cam. So ASCAP is kind of a holding company for licensing. For music, and so you can go there, like, if you want to do a cover for a song, like, you don't want to actually, like, redo the song, you don't want to actually, like, copy the song and sell it, you want to make a cover version of a song, you would pay a licensing fee to this company that would give you the license to redo that song. Weird Al goes through these people to license his music. Like, unlike a lot of people think, he's not protected by parody, he's actually protected by copyright, because he gets the license to do parodies of these songs. He doesn't just protect himself with fair use and parody. He probably could, but the thing is, whether you can or can't, lawyers will come after you. If they think that you're costing them money, people will send lawyers after you. That's what happens. And sometimes even if they don't think they're costing you money, but and it's amazing how little things can go. There's actually some stuff going on. I probably can't talk about that. I want to talk about that so bad though. It's so screwed up. But yeah, so it's a complex issue. If you're making something for yourself, do it. If you're making something to distribute, ask permission, and sometimes you'll get it. Seriously, like, some companies really want people to engage. Like, new companies are getting better about this. Young companies are better about this. The big ones that are the ones that are like, well, this is real money to us, and we have to have all this money to pay all these heads that we have in the company. And so yeah, I mean, be careful if you're using stuff, and if you're going to do it commercially, don't do it unless you have permission or a license from someone. That's my suggestion to you. I'm not a lawyer, but err on the side of caution on this stuff. But yeah, so that's, I mean, I love fan games, and I think fan games should be widespread. And unfortunately, companies that own the licenses to these things don't agree with me most of the time. So that's where that is. You hired the developer that made GUI to help make the new GUI, so I imagine it will be pretty similar. It might be. That's cool. And let's see, where can I find your games to play? Look for Pushy Pixels. I've got a couple things on iOS. I used to have Proton Pulse on there, but it's not on there right now, and I can't go into why. But it's a licensing thing. It's a really strange one. It's and it's actually kind of a strong arm tactic thing by the parties involved. But I can't talk about it because I don't want to be in a worse situation than I already am in with financials. So, and I don't have a lawyer army to protect me, or Justin for that matter. So, could you save controller preferences too with player preferences? Sure, yeah. Just like if you have a controller configuration layout, just label it 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can save them with that. And if you have a customizable layout, you have to be a little bit fancier. You could probably serialize it to a string, or you could just save each individual option to strings or integers. Let's see. But yeah, I'm working on it. I'm sitting here on my butt not doing anything, but I need to update my website. My website will be a better place to find my games. I'm going to have all of my previous games, including my Game Jam stuff, because I have quite a few Game Jam things. They're all simple things, but I like 48-hour competitions, like I said. So, so you'll see links to that on pushypixels.com for at some point. I'm sorry that site's still kind of under construction. It's juggling things. I don't have other people working for me or working with me on a lot of this stuff, so I just build a lot of this on my own, and so it's just whenever I have time, I work on this stuff. Quick shout out, thanks for taking the time to do these videos. You're the best. I doubt I'm the best, but thank you very much. You're the best for watching. Thanks for this. Yeah, you're welcome. I had a lot of fun doing this. It's nice. The main reason I did this way is just because I play off of Phil now, and Phil's just great to have on the show, and I feel like I can kind of have a conversation with you guys, and it's kind of filling in the fact that if I was doing a tutorial, I think I'd be really quiet compared to the other episodes where I've got Phil with me. So and we'll probably do another one of these with Phil involved too, or maybe Phil will do one on his own if he wants to. But yeah, it just was easier to set up this way. Gotta go. I like the way you share your knowledge of Unity. Keep up the good work. Subscribe. Thank you for your subscription. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. So yeah. So I think I'm going to wrap this thing up. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. I had a really fun time answering questions and talking about games and talking about game development. And let me know whatever. If you have more questions, please ask them. If you have ideas for shows, please tell me. If you have ideas for games, keep them to yourself. No, I'm kidding. If you have ideas for games, I don't mind hearing them. But and I'll even sign non-disclosure agreements if you're worried about that type of thing. I'm not planning on stealing anyone's ideas. But the thing is, ideas are cheap, and it's because what makes a game is the amount of work you put into it. I'm not saying you can't have a great idea that's amazing, but you still have to implement that idea, and the amount of work creating that idea is small compared to the actual implementing thing. But yeah, so have ideas and make projects and show good things. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to put stuff out there. People are not as omniscient as you think. Even though the internet has made it so that we all are pretty omniscient, even if you do a game jam that has a really good idea in it, people don't notice. Like, if you won, maybe they'll notice. But like if you have just an idea that's like, oh, this is a really good idea and it was well executed, no one will know. The reason I know this is because there are high-profile games where people don't realize that people have done things. Like, there's so much prior art in games where there's like, this is so unique. I'm like, I've seen that in 12 games from the 80s. And they don't remember these games. It's like, oh yeah, people don't remember these games. So put your stuff out there. Don't be afraid to have good ideas, and don't be afraid of people stealing them. And I know it sucks when it does happen. Like when people start cloning things, it sucks. And the thing is, I can't argue against clones personally, because I think that the point of copyright is to protect works. It's not to protect genres and ideas and stuff. So like dubstep. I mean, everyone makes dubstep. They don't have to license dubstep from someone. It's not a technology. It's not. But so you, if you want to make something that sounds like that, that's great. If you are making a game, if you're making another Farmville, I mean, that's fine. It's just it does suck when someone makes something that's kind of a unique idea, and then it even if they weren't planning on hammering it into the ground, other people hammer it into the ground for them. So yeah, I mean, that kind of happened with the first-person shooter. Although I'm not saying that the first-person shooter is a genre that will ever go away, or ever should, or shouldn't have caught on. It's a brilliant genre. It's just, and then of course there's cruft with this stuff too. I'm getting off track. Anyway, was there anything else? I'm gonna hit refresh one more time just in case this thing didn't actually work. Oh. Thanks for the Q&A. I will subscribe too. Thanks for opening up my eyes. Keep up the good work. Thank you for joining us. So thank you everyone for joining us. This is Max Moreau signing off, and now I'm going to just run the footage for a little bit. I forgot to mention my Twitter and Pushy Pixels. Oh well, whatever. I do that on every other episode anyway, so who cares. What do I have for the post? I don't know. I'm just really just letting time run out. The main reason, as I said, is if I just hit stop right now, it can possibly cut into it, and so whatever I'm saying now is going to be what we're cutting into, rather than the stuff that is annexed as the show and has kind of an ending to it. So, yeah. Yeah, I got nothing. My mind's blank. I like games. I like game music. Oh, wait. New comments? Are these actually real, new? No, they're fake new. Alright, anyway, that's enough time. So, see you folks. Good night.